Nancy, would you do the roll call, please?
Sure. Mr. Gibber.
Here.
Mr. Bishop.
Here.
Mr. Boyle.
Here.
Mr. Hall.
Here.
Mr. Sharp.
He's excused, he's on vacation.
And Mr. Walter.
Here.
Okay. Next, the minutes of June 17th, 2019.
Mr. Chairman,
Sure.
before we go to accept, I got two or three things.
Okay, I got one small, so go ahead.
Nancy, on the front page, number 5, second line,
Yep.
I could be wrong, but I'm thinking that Mr. Peck was not a doctor.
Yeah. He wasn't.
Oh, okay.
Okay, you probably just put an M there.
I think he signed in as one, that was why.
Really?
I thought he did.
I don't know if anybody can verify that one way or the other, but
But that's for her, you know that right?
no, no. It's insignificant, not to him. Okay. On page 4. 1, 2, 3 paragraphs down. I think we were all talking about the planning board and Mr. Roberts' potential extension permit or review of his permit and not the zoning board.
It should be the planning board.
Right.
They're the ones that have the authority.
Okay, so this should have read planning board right here, right?
Yes.
Wherever the zoning board is, probably should have been planning board, right?
Throughout?
I'm guessing.
Yeah.
And, hey, unless somebody else has got something, move to,
I got one.
oh yeah, go ahead.
I got one small one, Nancy, on page 3, down the bottom. Mrs. Schnapp confirmed the fire trees, it should be fir
Fir
trees.
trees.
That's-
Anything else?
Okay, make one.
I move to, oh,
No, please.
I move to accept the minutes as corrected for June 17, 2019.
I'll second that.
Okay, a motion's been made and seconded. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
I abstain. I was
Opposed?
absent.
Nice. This is the time when the public may address the board on any item listed on the meeting agenda or any issue or matter of the town. If you intend on addressing the board at this time, we ask you to do the following. Please identify yourself by name, address, or the company/institution you represent. The public address to the board segment will last no longer than 30 minutes. Please make your comments concise and try not to repeat statements made by others. Please address your comments to the board chair. Discussion or debate on any issue may not take place at this time. Questions on procedural matters may be answered by the chair or the designee. Please be cordial and respectful of others. If anyone wishes to be recognized when an agenda item is discussed by the board, please make that request at this time. This request may be granted by the board chair. Address comments to the board chair and be concise. Is there anyone who wants to speak to any of the items? Yes, sir.
No, I'm sorry, not on the item, something pertaining to the
Okay,
town.
go ahead.
Okay. My name is John Leduc, I live at 98 Frederick Drive, and I'm just representing myself, there's no business, anything like that. I called the town, my road it's horrible. They won't, you know, keep on calling, there's potholes, you go around the corner, you gotta go 2 miles an hour, and the car's jumping like this. And then I see the thing in the paper that we're not doing anything this year, and they listed the streets, and they're not doing anything next year. It's just unbelievable. So I'm gonna live with this forever? I mean, the road is horrible. I took a video, I can show you some of the holes, if you'd like to look at it.
Yeah, could you forward them to us? I'll give you my email, you can forward them to me.
Okay, if you give me the email, yeah. I get it from town hall.
Yeah.
And I'll forward it to you, all right?
Okay.
But, I mean, it's just, it's crazy. I mean, you know, you pay
And what?
You pay your live taxes and you're just waiting for something to happen, and the road just, it's horrible.
Okay, this is Frederick Drive?
Frederick Drive, and it's quite a bit of it. I mean, the front of the street's not too bad, although there's a giant hole in the middle. But if you get by there, as soon as you start going around that corner, and that's where I live, right around the corner, it's terrible. And if you go past my house, it's just as bad. And, you know, keep on calling and nobody even fills the holes.
So, did you come before the board?
I came before, and I give you guys credit,
Yeah.
I came last time, this was in the fall, and somebody did come in and they patched the holes. They're all gone. There's nothing left, and all the rocks are all over the side of the road now. So I give you credit. I came last time, they patched the holes, didn't do a great job, but you know, they came with a bucket and they shoveled it in, and a couple cars went by and it was gone. But, I mean, it's terrible. Thank you.
One other question.
Yes.
Do you know if they use hot patch or cold patch? If that was in the fall?
I really don't know, I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
All right, we'll get ahold of the highway department.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Anyone else? Al?
Al Nato, Elaine Avenue. I got a couple of things, and one of them piggybacks off of him. But mine are based on some of the articles that have been showing up in the Eagle recently. I want to compliment whoever it is who came up with the idea that we're going to retire some of our town debt before we tackle livestock. That's a great idea. Whoever came up with it, fantastic. Follow up, they had a list of streets in it. Forget Frederick. There wasn't a single street in the South Street corridor that's named on that street. I've been living on Elaine Avenue since January '63, and all we've gotten down there was a tar and stone covering back in the late '60s, early '70s when Tom Callahan was superintendent of the street. We got grass growing up in that street. And there isn't a street in the Greenwich Park area that's suitable for walking, much less traffic. It's time for the town to start doing something. Otherwise, I'm going to start a movement that we in Greenwich Park area withhold 10% of our real estate tax until the streets are taken care of. Because that's all real estate, that's all our taxes do. Town government, schools, police, parks, and highways. And they're not doing the highways. Okay, that's part of it. My other part is the town's got to separate themselves from becoming a real estate agent. Real estate developer. This property, forget putting houses here, save it, because the reason you're here tonight is because our town hall is becoming deficient in terms of holding meetings or even parking. Someday we may want a new town hall, a new library, good place for it, right here. And this property has never brought any taxes into the town of Dalton. If you put 7 houses here and they bring in $5,000 a year real estate tax, that's $35,000. What does that buy you? A new cruiser? A new truck? It's not worth it. This is prime property. Put your soccer fields down here until you need to use something else. This town needs to start looking forward instead of looking at the present. You got to start looking forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Thank you, Dr. Witch. Okay, item 6. Update on the junk cars removal. Chief?
Good. Let me just take a few seconds to get everyone on the same page before I give you my report, which I think you'll find is, depending on where you're coming at the issue, good news. Just so you know, there's a town bylaw that's been passed. It's Chapter 333, junk or unregistered vehicles. It's all our codified bylaws are on the website, so if you go to dalton-ma.gov, under departments, there's a menu at the top, departments. If you go down, it's publications, and then you'll find the code. And all our bylaws are listed there. But I just wanted to, before I talk about what the report is, I want to tell everyone what we'll be talking about, which is the junk or unregistered bike bylaw. And a junk vehicle is any vehicle that is inoperable, worn out, discarded, which is ready for dismantling or destruction, which has been collected or stored for salvage, stripping, or to use parts. Or it can be unregistered. So in other words, it's not junk, it just simply wasn't registered with insurance and a plate on that. And then finally, the vehicle part, this is what people get confused about, is the definition of a vehicle. You have to go to the definition. I know you and I think what a vehicle is. Well, it says under the definition, any motor vehicles, towed trailers, recreational off-road vehicles, aircraft, watercraft, or motorcycles. So a lot of times when we give somebody a violation, they don't feel as though it comes under the definition of a vehicle. Well, the normal definition, they may be right, but under the bylaw, what's been accepted, it probably, I do the survey myself. I just, for the purpose of this meeting, I went out again today to do an update to see where we are. And with that said, if you recall, we started this kind of late last year in October, and we started a new spring at the request of the select board in April this year. So we gave a lot of latitude to anyone who was found in violation. And they get, for the first offense, they get a notification of the bylaw, a letter further explaining it, and a citation, but there's zero fine to it. The first is a warning. And they have 30 days from that date to either register the car or remove the car from the property. After 30 days, we go out and check. It's always after that point, every 30 days. So a second violation may end up with a $25 fine according to the fine schedule. But then we have to wait another 30 days to allow them to either correct the situation or register the vehicle or remove the vehicle. And then finally, the bylaw allows for any third and subsequent offenses, so it could go 4 months, 5 months, $100 each time in addition to what was already fined. However, for one total calendar year, we can only give $300 fine for maximum total. So I just wanted everyone to know what the rule was. And if you've been watching town meetings, you've known since October and April, again, we've given a lot of leeway to try to get cooperation. The board has been very good at saying and agreeing that the philosophy is having people comply with the law so we can get rid of these eyesores in town rather than maybe collecting $25 or $100 here. We're not going to get rich and pay off debt with our junk car violations. However, in April, we were still dealing with the issue, and I reported that we had 18 properties that were still in violation of the bylaw. You gave most till today, July 8th, and I can tell you that we're down to 8 properties of those 18. That means 10 properties within that time complied. And there were some very big eyesores that were coming to the forefront. A lot of times it was just one car and a resident and they took care of it. Most people, by the way, comply with the warning. We don't have to, when we recheck, it's taken care of. Maybe they forgot about it, so we give them a second notice, and then certainly the overwhelming majority of residents take care of it then. But one that you guys gave 8 months working with was the Barton property up on North Street. I went by today, and if you haven't been up there, it's clear. There is a dumpster, which I believe it's a commercial dumpster that they were using during the project, which I'm sure in time will get removed, but it is completely clear. So there's a good example of why having compliance and working with somebody over 8 months is better than just simply fining. Because they could have paid $300 and then had all those farm equipment and whatnot what was up there. Instead, your patience made all the difference. If you drive by, I think you'll agree. So of the 8 properties that remain, 5 are residents, and I don't think we're going to have a problem. We had to give a second notice. Like I said, I think with those second notices, we'll start seeing those 5 residents take care of, and they're all unregistered. Perfectly usable cars, you can turn the key today and drive it. It's just unregistered. Sometimes if it's maybe a son or daughter who was in the military and maybe been deployed, they park it on the side of the yard. They don't want to have the insurance on it, so they unregister it. Though we don't know what the circumstance is, because what they're asked to do is if they want an extension, in the letter, it's informing them to come to the select board and ask for that extension. For those 5, we have not gotten any dialogue, and that's what the select board looks for, is that dialogue. But I do believe we'll have a good result with those 5. Leaving us with 3, I say controversial properties, but it's just because I think it's going to take some time, or it has already taken time. And I'll start with 39 Cliff Street, the Lenski property. I've had dialogue with them. It was tied up in probate. The father passed away, and there was 3 siblings that were dealing with the probate matters. And I was having contact with one person who was the leader, but after probate, the other 2 now have become leaders, and that person is removed from the property. So I really think I need to start back at 0, because if I go to court, I can't prove these. I have to prove why I find improper notice. I can't believe that if I was dealing with Joel through this whole time, and now he's been not awarded the property and he's moved, now I have to deal with Jeff and Joanne. The good thing is although there seems to be still some differences between the 2, they're talking with me and they both agree that they both want the vehicles gone. And there's probably about 9 vehicles on that property we've gotten complaints. So there's one controversial property that I believe moving forward will make headway. I've only issued 9 warnings for those vehicles. I have not fined them at this time. Again, only because I think showing proper notice and then the timely follow-through helps me in front of a judge or court if we wanted to collect the fines. The second one, of course, is 326 Old Windsor Road. Brian O'Neill, who's been here at 2 different meetings, who stated he had several vehicles on his property for different reasons. And the promise was if he got rid of them today, he'd be forgiven the past fines. He did call me first thing this morning. He said that all day long he had scheduled trips to get vehicles off there. He did express that he didn't believe he was going to get them all off the property today, that there would be a few, and he said Wednesday they would be removed. He realized he was calling after the due date of today. I told him that I thanked him for his phone call, that I would express what he said to you, and I'd leave it up to you. I told him, look, if they decide to go through with the fines, I'm going to have to do that. Because ultimately, although I issue the citation, you end up being the final decision of whether it's if you forgive the fees or not. So that one I'm going to have to ask. I did ask him to report back to me, and he didn't this afternoon, of how many he was actually able to remove from his property and how many remained. I didn't get that call. But I didn't know if you wanted to try to give him till Wednesday as a final jump-off point. I think if we give him 48 hours, again, when I go to court, it shows sufficient notification, sufficient willingness to work with them, and reasonableness, and I think a judge would say, go ahead and collect the fines. That's my hurdle in court. So if I can, I guess, get a final determination, do you want me to wait till?
Wait till the end, and we'll go back and.
Wait till Wednesday? Okay. And then the final property is, we had several commercial properties that we had issues with. All but one have cleared up the issues, removed the vehicles, and they primarily had to do, other than what I mentioned, Dalton tractor, the old Dalton tractor, were businesses that are in commercial areas zoned for repair and or sale of vehicles. It becomes a little difficult for me to enforce. I went to I referred to their permit to see what was allowed and what was not, how many unregistered cars were allowed. And I only cited those, or if I needed to cite, those outside those allowances. So the only commercial property left that I'm dealing with is Tom Bennett. It's Tom's Sales and Service on Housatonic Street, or 460 West Housatonic Street, sorry. There are currently, as of today, 12 vehicles and we've given months since October 2018. I have letters with proper notification, proper notice of service of those letters. I've gotten emails back from Mr. Bennett acknowledging that he's gotten these letters. And so I think at this point, since October, I have 12 violations. I'm going to go ahead and begin, after the warning process, I'm going to issue 12 violations at that first, or the second violation, which is $25 a piece, for a total $300. We'll have 30 days, so August 8th will be my next check for all of these, by the way. And I'm hoping we can move on from there. It may end up in court. I know he has removed some vehicles, but new vehicles have arrived. And of those vehicles, there are 12 violations. Just to give you an idea, in October, there was 20 vehicles on the lot, 17 that would have fallen under the violation. 3 were registered. Now there's 17 vehicles, and 12 I can clearly tell fall under the violation. So there has been movement, but new additions, and then some that just remained. So that's pretty much the 8 violations, but those 3 that I'm still working with, the 5 I think will have no problem.
Is he still in business?
Well, so the business is not active, and he let his used car license lapse.
Right.
Use a question of Chief Bell. He said there's 17 on the lot now, and you determined that 12 of them meet the criteria to be a junk vehicle. The other 5?
They seem like you could turn the key, and there are plates on it. From the I'm not allowed to go on their property to verify and because it could be a third-party car. I can't just run like with your home, I can just run your address and the registry will tell me how many are registered to that address. I can't do that here because it's commercial property for that purpose.
But you seem to think that 5 of them may be registered. All right.
I have a question, Chief. The $300 maximum fine, is that per vehicle or per address?
Per vehicle, per calendar year.
Okay, so if you have 17, it's 17 times.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
The only side note is you did table 174 Depot Street, Mr. Staples' trailer. It's gone.
Oh, it's gone.
So he's compliant and we're not going to have that issue, so there's no, even though you table it, there's really nothing to decide. Okay?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It was Ward Chief.
Thank you. Okay, next we have 785 Main Street renovation discussion. Chris and Caroline Ersfield. I'm going to have, this is how I want to handle this one. I want to have Chris and Caroline come up and explain what their problem is, and then I'm going to have the building inspector explain how he sees it, and then I'm going to ask Chief Callahan a couple questions, and then I'm going to open up for discussion of the select board, okay? You're on, Chris.
Should we bring chairs up?
Anything you want.
Should we come up there? Or?
Yeah, please do.
I'm not sure if you guys knew this right out or not, but I've got a titanium knee that will only take so much standing. Hi, I'm Chris Ersfeld, my wife Caroline.
Hi.
We will try to be brief. Just to give you a little bit of history. We, about 4 years ago, bought an abandoned Victorian on the corner of Lennon and Main. It was abandoned for about 7 years. But it was an interesting looking house. And so we bought it, and I had a crew that I worked with before that restored it in partnership with our daughter and her husband, who have 2 children. And we finished it, and the town seemed very pleased with it. Beautiful house. And they live in it. The whole time we were working on that house, I was looking at the Episcopal Church down the street. Every time I go to LP Adams, I'd see the for sale sign. And I've always been intrigued by large buildings, banks, firehouses, churches, and I thought that would probably be a fun project. And so we went and looked at it, and all 6 of our children tried to have us committed. I thought that it would be a fun project. It was literally collapsing. The foundations of the sacristy and the organ room collapsed into the basement. And my engineer that looked at it said, if that gets to the first buttress, that'll go and they'll take the church down. But they thought maybe it had 2 more years to go, so it's probably lucky that someone like us came along. We went to the then building inspector, Mr. Chirico, and his alternate, Mr. Fitzgerald, was on a phone conference. And I said, I need to know whether this is going to be a stretch compliant project, because you just passed the stretch law. And I had run into it full force in Stockbridge. I bought a cottage to redo after I left the office. And they passed stretch, and I didn't even know what the acronym was. I didn't know what stretch meant. And I found out when I did this house up at Stockbridge Bowl. It's not that I'm not a conservationist or an energy type fan, but I found out how horribly expensive it would be in older building. So looking at this church, I thought that there's no way that you can bring 7,000 square foot building up to stretch compliance when it's got 40 stained glass windows and just, I mean, it's 1892 and the Guildhall next to it's 1869. I mean, you couldn't do it if you wanted to. And so I said, there's no hard feelings if you have to do it, I just won't buy the church. And they conferenced and they got back to us and they said, we don't think that you need to do that because of the age of the building, the historic value of the building. So on that advice, we bought the building and came back and were issued that permit. Here's the application that we filled out when we were studying it. I'm sure that's in the packet I gave you. And on the last page of the application is a box at the bottom that says the stretch provision is not applicable. And Mr. Schreiber checked that box. Now, this may or may not become moot because of the news I got about 1 o'clock this afternoon from town council. I take great umbrage to that, and I'll be very, very swift on it. This has been going on for over 90 days, and I have been asking to be a pest of the town manager for an opinion from the town council on the validity of my permit that was issued. I went through my emails after I got that thing today. I can't print them out in my printers, but I had at least 2 face-to-face meetings with him, but on May 22nd, May 21st, June 4th, I've got the copies, I can email them to you, where I'm literally begging, why can't I get an opinion from this guy? How long does it take to study a permit, whatever. So I resented the fact that I got this at 1 o'clock this afternoon of the day of the meeting. We decided we had time to send this out. I'm not a fool, I'm not stupid, I don't believe in coincidence. It's not right. But that's a procedural matter, I'll let that one go. But it may or may not make this other argument moot because he's ruling in favor of Brian. My question, my problem, is that I asked before I bought this church if I had to do this, and was told no. I filled out an application, they issued it to me, the town cashed my $1,100 fee, and for 22 months, I spent money on this building and brought it up to anybody that's been near it. It's just beyond museum quality. It's gorgeous. I can't bring it up to stretch code. It's 40 stained glass windows. The code, regular code, calls for so much natural ventilation of any window space in a room. They've got to be able to open and ventilate. The windows in this church pivot in the center, the ones that open. It's a special hinge work. You couldn't put a storm window on either side of that for any money in the world. It's got antique English plank doors that are 10 feet tall. They're made out of tongue-and-groove English oak with a lock system. You've seen the hinges on the outside. To make that stretch code, it's got a fiberglass, insulated, basically a gym door. I promised the Historic Society and the ZBA that I would keep that looking like a church, and I have. I made 3 changes on the elevation. I put a large door on it. I took 3 stained glass windows, put an Anderson energy efficient French door on it, and I closed the door and put an Anderson energy efficient window. Those are the only changes I made on the outside of the church. So I think they're happy with it. We got about a dozen people a week that ask to come through it. I know the town seems to be interested in it. I can't legally be in my own building. This has gone on for 90 days, and something's got to happen. I don't know where to go. I'm raising our 7-year-old granddaughter. She was supposed to be up here after winter break in Greenville. My cousin lives in that house on Glennon. I signed them both up for activities at the youth center and stuff for the summer. I can't bring her up and be in the building. She's camping on an air mattress in my empty Stockbridge house because all my belongings are up here. This thing has become a nightmare. And if I can't get it settled, school starts soon. She goes back to South County, can't come up here. I don't know what to do. I don't know where to go. I'm disappointed with what the lawyer said. The only thing in that I agreed with is he said if this went to court, a judge would probably rule in favor of the Roosevelts. Anybody with any common sense at all has to look at this and say this is wrong. I trusted Dalton. I gave him my money. I consider this a contract to do the work that the town said I needed to do to complete this permit. I did that work, and now I've got somebody saying a new building inspector can come in and completely negate this because he's got a different opinion of how this should be. That means, I guess, if he leaves and you bring in another new guy, he can come in and say, oh, you're still not done, we've got more stuff we want to do. I don't understand that ruling. I can't argue it here, but anybody with any common sense knows this is wrong. I did the work. I played fair. I did everything the Historic Commission, the ZBA, and the town wanted me to do and more. And all I'm asking is the town to play the same errors with me. I don't know how you're gonna do that, but this isn't right. It's just not right. Brian calls it just another old building that's on the list somewhere. Here's a postcard from Louisa Howe, Worth. Dalton Historical Society. I bought it at their booth. They use it for fundraising. I've got 3 of them, different views of the church. She's not selling pictures of the convenience store or ranch houses. She's selling pictures of historic buildings. Did you get the letter that she sent?
Yes, I did.
Okay, I did not, but I couldn't print it out. I just wanted to make it. I would like that read into the official record if you could. She's very supportive of this project.
Would you like me to do it now?
You can do it anytime you wish. I just think it should be part of the record that the town can see. It's a very nice letter. She's very supportive.
This is a letter from Louisa to the Select Board. It says, to the honorable members of the Dalton Select Board, in 1893, the Grace Episcopal Church first service was held in its new building. The cornerstone for the church building was laid in November 1892 by its pastor, Phil Brooks, author of Over the Town of Bethlehem. An earlier vestryman was Tom Trent, one of the British survivors of the famous cavalry charge of the Light Brigade in 1844 against the Russian cavalry. The building known as the Guildhall portion of the church was built in 1869 as a 2-room schoolhouse. It was called Center School and used for intermediate grades. These are just a few of the many historical facts which make up the rich history of Dalton's Grace Episcopal Church. Members of the Dalton Historical Commission have met with the new owner of the property, Mr. Ernsfield, and appreciate all his efforts to preserve the historical character that was the Grace Episcopal Church. He has endeavored to preserve original components of the building and should be fully encouraged to continue preserving the original architect where possible. In our opinion, all efforts by Dalton officials should be made to assist him in his restoration and preservation efforts. It is our duty as elected and appointed town officials to protect and preserve town historical sites whenever possible. Louisa Worth, Vice Chair of the Dalton Historical Commission.
I appreciate that. Thank you. I just would close with a comment that if I'm forced to do this stretch compliance, I know where this goes. The state rules a violation of insulation, windows, doors, whatever, and then you're in violation. And Brian and the town go, it's out of our hands. The state says you have to do this. I can't do it. I can't make that house compliant. If you want people to come into this town and save these old buildings, you've got to figure something out here. Because I had the next project picked out. It was bigger than the church. It was a different product, but it was going to be a nice building. I told my realtor to stop talking to them. I can't do business like this. I made a deal with Dalton. I expected Dalton to keep their end of it. I don't know how you do it with this ruling for your town council. I'll say one last thing, and it may be an out for you, I don't know. On Massachusetts Stretch Energy Code Appendix 780 CMR 115.AA, and I'll give you this, I think you might have it in your kit. Both the stretch code and the base energy code exempt historic buildings listed in state or national registers or designated as historic properties under the local or state designation law or survey, or with an opinion or certification that the property is eligible to be listed. If you can get,
He just did that with that letter.
if you can get Louisa to call a meeting where she's willing, with a forum, and say this is a historic building that I think would be eligible to be applied to have it listed, this building can be voted in town. I don't know if that's what you can do. I don't know what you can do, but this can't continue. I feel like I'm being pushed towards something I don't want to do. I don't want to get into a dogfight with the town. I like this town, but if I have to move my furniture back to Stockbridge and put my 7-year-old in school to sit down there for a year, I don't think you'll see me do that. It's a beautiful building, and I feel terrible about this, but this is wrong. It's wrong on every count when you look at it. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Do you want comments now?
This morning, I emailed town council about what we could do as a select board to help the situation out. And he says, Bob, discussions regarding building permits and the building code can only be made by a building inspector. Further complicating the situation is that the board cannot direct the building inspector to take any specific action. Even though the board appoints a building inspector, he is an independent official, and the board cannot tell him what to do. The board's authority in this area is limited to appointing or not reappointing the building inspector. Okay, and our hands are kind of tied on that, but it is my understanding that this project, after you were given that permit, Mr. Duval, our building inspector, never set foot in that place until you asked for a CO, am I correct?
Yes, Mr. Chirico was there through the framing of the permit, and I think it was maybe 6 months into the project, and he left, both Mr. Chirico and Mr. Fitzgerald left. And I knew that they appointed somebody new, I didn't know his name. For the remainder of the 2 years, he never came by. I never heard his name until the day we called for a CO. He never introduced himself. And from the sound of it, with this checking the box thing, and he went back and changed the document on the computer, he had never reviewed our application, because he was surprised that was checked. I don't know why he didn't. It's not that big a town, whether there 20 files maybe. I personally would have gone out and introduced myself and said, let me see what you're doing and see what we need. I was surprised. This was a formality. I mean, this place is done. And that's why my furniture was moved up here. The walkthrough was literally a formality to get the CO. I was stunned when he said, I'm not going to give you a CO. At the first meeting that you were at, we asked for a temporary CO while we worked this out. Absolutely not. I don't know, you know, my furniture's here. I got an empty house in Stockbridge. I got a 7-year-old. I had to send to California because she's got nothing to do with the summer. I just literally split the service here. I know the minute this appeal on Thursday happens, he's going to show up and say, you got to get out of this building. You can't even come up here and work on it. I know where this is going to go. I'm not stupid.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Yeah.
Yeah. Bob and I are somewhat confused about the date for this hearing.
It's Thursday.
I thought it was the 10th.
No.
I don't see it listed on the agenda.
No, she appeals.
No, it's in Milford.
Okay. And it's the 11th then?
Right?
It's the 11th?
Yes.
11.
Okay. We were led to believe it was the 10th.
At 11:30.
All right, please continue.
11:30.
It's Thursday,
Yeah.
July 11th.
And I know Gordon Bailey, and Gordon Bailey said these are reasonable people. Gordon's of the opinion, I'm not talking for him, but if something's not done to save these old buildings, no one's going to step in and spend money on them. And believe me, this is going to go out. There's someone from the Eagle sitting here that called this afternoon. This story's going to go out. I'm not pushing it. But who comes in here and buys a stationery factory or a church and makes it something nice if this is the way the town treats them? I'm telling you, this is not right.
May I say something?
Yeah, absolutely.
I was on the Green Committee when we pushed the stretch code. And I consider myself an environmentalist. I'm on several national committees. I'm a former chemist. What you're doing is very environmentally sound. You know, you're saving a building. If we had to put another structure or a house there, the amount of environmental damage that would be caused, the amount of greenhouse gases that would be produced is huge.
Yeah.
It is ridiculous not to try to save the building, and what you did is just wonderful.
I'd like to formally invite you down to see it.
It's totally against logic
Bingo.
not to do what you're doing.
Yeah. We converted to natural gas. I've got a furnace that's the size of that television set.
But
that
but
heats
just
all
the
church.
raw materials that would be used to make anything new from
I know.
scratch, it's just totally,
It-
it's really wrong.
It's-
You're actually using the stretch code in a way, misusing it because you're actually hurting the environment.
Thank you. I'd love to hear that. I think I've run into a scene from Les Miserables where I get pursued across the universe
Yes.
for something that is trivial. I
Yes.
can't get away from this. It's like getting tar on your feet.
I
It's
hear what
awful.
you're saying.
And I'm at the end, and I talked to Bob about that last week. I can't take any more of this.
Well, I didn't understand
When
that.
I break,
Okay,
when I
all
go,
right.
I'll be gone.
Well, that's, maybe we can find some solution.
I hope so. I truly do.
Good night.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm sorry to take you
Hang on
one
one
on
second.
the
Just one more brief comment.
Yes.
I don't supportive of building permits that are decided and then move forward, because then you set your budgets, you set your decisions, and you move forward. That's the right thing, in my opinion. The other thing, just as a resident of Dalton and a new member of this committee, I was proud to see that construction happen. So
It's
thank you.
beautiful.
It's a wonderful building. I haven't seen the inside, the outside looks great.
Please come down.
And I believe that in the future of Dalton, we're going to be selling the lifestyle to have a nice, strong economic base for our community. So projects like this should be encouraged and fully supported.
You got a lot of them
So,
around.
I just need to understand the legalities of Mr.
I
Chairman.
don't understand what happened today. I'm very, very upset we played for a fool, but that showed up at 1 o'clock this afternoon. I've been begging for it for 90 days. That makes me very angry. No time to respond to it, no time to do anything. Thank you very much. Sorry to be longer than we should.
I have to say, I'm extremely confused by when a building inspector gives a permit, we should honor that permit. Changing things at the 11th hour is not a good thing. Brian, I'm going to have you explain why you did that. I'm totally confused, I'm totally frustrated with it, I'm probably more frustrated than Chris and Caroline about this. We have a family that's split up, that can't go. You want to give them a temporary permit, a certificate to get in there. Taconic School's been having a temporary certificate for over just about a year now. And I don't understand why they can't get in their house. They invested close to $500,000 in that house. And we, as a town, gave him a valid permit, and all of a sudden it's gone. And now he's faced with tons of money to change something that he didn't want to do. And I'm totally frustrated about it. I don't understand the reasoning about it, but I'll have you explain why.
Isn't there also a hardship permit that can be granted?
I have no idea.
Brian Bell, building commissioner for the town. Just to start at the beginning of this, when I was called to do the inspection, final inspection for this permit, I went there to the property. As part of the final inspection for a change of use from a commercial building to a single-family dwelling, there's documentation that I'm required to collect at the end showing that they've met the energy code. There's an energy certificate that they're required by the code that's mandatory to have.
Excuse me for interrupting, but didn't they have an exemption on that, on the box? Just check.
That box is not an exemption. On an application, that's the applicant that fills out that box is to alert the inspector that there's energy work being done. That's for reporting purposes, if someone wants to track how many projects.
That's not the way I read it, I'm sorry.
That's the way.
Read Mr. Tirico's letter.
This is,
Okay,
it's
go
not
ahead.
an exemption. There's no box that would exempt you from any requirements of the building code on a building permit application. There's nothing somebody as a applicant.
Then why is that box on there?
Again, it's to track how many projects are involved with energy use. And so that property, I asked them if they had that documentation, and told me that, that it was not required, that Rico told him that it was not a requirement for that project. So I, at that point, said, well, go back in the office, check, I'll get back. I went back in the office, I reviewed the code, I saw no exemptions available for that. I contacted 2 HERS raters, I asked them, I told them what the project was about. I said, am I missing something? Is this project, is there some exemptions for a HERS rater? Is it HERS requirement for this? They came back and said, well, it absolutely requires HERS rater and HERS rating, but there was no historical exemption that they were aware of that would eliminate HERS rating for this project. I contacted the state building inspector, Gordon Bailey. He spent 2 hours in my office. Him and I went over every line of code, trying to find some way out of this. He felt, there was none. That the only option they should pursue was an appeal to the Building Code Appeals Board. That body is the body that can grant you exception from building.
Say they get the,
Is that,
Go ahead, John.
is that the thing that's scheduled for Thursday?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Local inspectors have no authority to waive mandatory requirements of the code.
Say they pass that, now, then will you give them the CO?
I actually sent them a letter maybe 3 weeks ago looking for an update, because there's other stuff I'm waiting to, I need to do a re-inspection. There was missing smoke detectors, there was some other stuff I had to come back and look at. I sent them a letter, it's been almost 3 or 4 months now since I was first there. I sent them a letter saying, here's a list of things, I'm waiting to be contacted back. I have not heard back from you. If we can address these items, and if you are willing to abide by the appeals board decision for the energy part of this, I would be willing to discuss a temporary certificate of occupancy for you.
Why a temporary?
Because I can't, the code says I cannot issue one without a hearing.
But if you
There's
get
only
an
two
exemption
things-
for it,
There's only
you
two
can.
things in the code that prevent me from issuing a certificate of occupancy. A violation and a HERS rating. Those are the only two things in the whole code. So the HERS rating is a big, energy compliance is a very important thing in the state.
Well, what I think really confuses me is he revamped his building with the thought in his head, even the building inspector said he was exempt for it, so he went and spent close to $500,000 to do this.
And I understand that, and it's
And
unfortunate.
now we're just talking about he's gonna have higher heating bills. What's the big deal?
Code is code. I mean, if you say, what's the big deal to the building code appeals board, I'm sure they'll know that.
Mr. Chairman,
Sure.
on the application, it says not applicable under section 11. You need to check the IACC code for the stretch energy code, not applicable. Our resident selected not applicable and was submitted the permit. How could he receive a permit if the application is incorrect?
There's actually multiple mistakes on that application, but he still received.
But he received a permit.
When you receive a permit,
Yep.
under a certain edition of the code, you are bound for whatever requirements that edition of the code requires. That's the way the state enforces the code.
Any other questions from the board?
Can we write a letter of support for the permit to the appeals process on Thursday?
Absolutely.
I
If
would,
we vote, we need to vote on it.
I would make a motion that we like to write a letter of support for the first route family, for their appeal on Thursday to have a permit process. I'll second that.
Okay. John, do you want to comment on that? Okay.
Just a question.
Could I make one more
Is this it? Is this good, your action, sending a letter, excuse me, a letter of support to the building code board for the building?
Yes.
That's it. That's our involvement. We acknowledge that we have a legal opinion on this whole matter from our town attorney. I mean, we asked for a legal opinion, or various people asked for it. We now have it in our hands. He ruled in favor of the building inspector. And that's the first part. And the second part is, even, he indicates, even if, I gotta read this again here. The second part indicates that there may be some avenue to address this situation by the historical commission voting to place this, or suggest that it be listed on the National Register. But then, he indicates that the HERS concept must be applied in piecemeal from an engineering firm, how it will affect the building and how it won't. Right, am I stating this correctly?
That's what I want to talk about. And, you know, this building does have a lot of history to it. Probably is eligible to be considered a historical property. And that was one of the other things I went back and did too. When I first came back to the office, I checked with the historical commission. I talked to Louisa. She told me, no, that property is not historical. I checked with the state. They told me, no, that's not historical property.
It's not listed, but it doesn't mean,
Right. But I mean, that's
You
in the
didn't apply.
code, in the building code, in the energy code. There is an exemption that says no requirement of this energy code can be mandated on a historical building that would change one of the historical features of the building.
but I believe it also goes on to say, if you're applying or if you believe it does need it, you are covered by the appropriate board. That board has made that determination.
Louisa still will tell me that it's not historic building. I mean, they're gonna have to do this at one of their meetings, and it sounds like they're heading in that direction. So at that point, they could come, but they're still gonna have to contract with the HERS rater. There's the HERS rater that says, here's what you need to do to meet the energy requirements. Not me, the HERS rater does this. Here's the things that you have to do to this building. And like I said to them at the beginning, one of the historical features of this building is the stained glass windows. And they say, I don't want to change the stained glass windows because it's going to change the historical look of this property. That's something you can say, okay, those windows, don't touch those windows. But there's a lot of other stuff that certainly don't change the look of the building as energy mandatory.
Right, this is basically what embodies the attorney's opinion, the second part.
Right.
You said it much better than I did. So, there is an avenue, it may be a rocky road, but that's probably the
It
avenue.
doesn't take you out of the whole requirement. There's no blanket waiver for all of it. Because there's interior stuff, ventilation, lighting, that wouldn't change the look of the building. You can't say the whole thing, the only way they could blanket say the whole thing is not required if the appeals board says you don't have to do the, you don't need a HERS rating. If they come back and say that, then fine.
Chief, Jerry, have you been in there?
I've never been in that.
Look, Chris.
My only comment on what Brian's talking about here is you can exempt the windows if you want, but we're talking about a 130-some-odd-year-old building, and the one next to it's even older than that. I didn't touch any of these interior walls. There's 30-foot ceilings with beams and everything. You put a test on that, I don't know what's in those walls. I bet you it's not the stuff that's going to pass a HERS test. So you're taking a historic building, and someone's going to say you need to open all these walls up and insulate them. This building is done. All this stuff's replastered, painted, finished. Every wire in that house has been replaced. Every bulb is LED. Changed to natural gas. I got a furnace that heats the whole church that's this big. I mean, I can't do any more to it, but I know where he's going. When they tell me that it won't pass HERS, they're talking about opening up walls and ceilings and things, and I cannot do that.
Brian?
I mean, I talked to the contractor about this, and he told me that the walls are already filled with blown insulation. There's already blown insulation from the attic on the ceilings. So I don't think he's nearly in bad shape as he thinks he is. My only concern is I have to issue a certificate of occupancy at the end of this that says that it has met all the requirements of this edition of the code. What do I tell the owner of the next, that owns this down the road, and they say, well, gee, why is this building so drafty when it just got renovated under this edition of the code?
I could tell him it was exempt from the HERS rating.
Well, it's not.
What is the penalty if someone lives in a place and doesn't have the occupancy?
Occupying the dwelling
Yes.
without a certificate of
Yes.
occupancy
What is
is a
it?
violation of the building code, and it's punishable by, I can write fines for it, and then it will go to court.
They won't be too happy with it either.
Insurance wise, too.
Yeah, insurance too. Good point about it.
Um,
Well, I think, Mr. Chairman,
Let's
board
move the
is-
motion, yeah.
yeah, just to recapitulate, we have a motion from Mr. Rivers, and I think the board's support for the letter is the best this board can do. We certainly can't, as pointed out to us, overrule the decision of the building inspector or anyone else as a department head. So the best we can do is send this letter to the Board of Appeals on Thursday now. We got that straight out. Yeah, glad. And, hey, wish both parties the best of luck, but I think that's where the battle will be fought. Can I ask one question about that? If in fact both parties are unhappy with the verdict of the appeals board, is there another appeal or is that the end of the road? And of course,
I mean, I certainly wouldn't appeal. I don't have any personal interest in that at all, believe me. They say that
they say it's pretty good.
I'm happy, believe me. They did a great job, I will say.
But if Mr.
Beautiful.
And I don't know what's in his mind.
He can,
You're always in the back of your mind, nobody likes to threaten with lawyers or attorneys,
the applicant,
even though that's been whispered.
yeah, if the applicant is dissatisfied with the decision, he gets appealed to the Superior Court.
Court action.
We should take a vote.
Yes. All right, I'm going to call for a vote, John. The motion's been made and seconded on the floor. We discussed it. All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed?
So you gonna write a letter, Mr. Chairman?
I will, Ken, would you help me with this letter? Should we do it tomorrow?
And would we also write a letter to the Historic Commission asking what's on?
Yes, I will email.
And do a meeting quickly?
Well, when I talked to Louisa, when she did this letter, I think they're going to have a meeting in August, she said. But the thing that bothers me, a family split up because one opinion is different from the other, and we had an exception, and I think, I just really get upset about the message this is sending throughout the town.
It does seem unjust. It's unjust what has happened.
I mean, just, the least can get them in there. I mean, they got all their furniture, they got everything they have in the house, and they can't even get in there.
Mr. Chairman, what is the holdback on temporary? I don't understand the holdback on temporary certification as the family moves along this process of good faith.
Again, I just sent out a letter recently saying you can address these items. We're missing smoke detectors that had to be added.
But I think they addressed this smoke detector. I'm pretty sure
I
they
understand the life safety stuff, but I actually was sure.
I haven't even seen that building, just so everybody here, I want to be clear. I haven't seen, there's no fault here. It just wasn't done yet, I wasn't called for this yet. I have not seen any of that building, so as far as the smoke detectors go, or any other life safety device in that building, I know nothing about. I find it very erratic that you're backing up the building inspector this board got rid of.
I've invited everybody down, I'll cook you breakfast, come on down and look at it. I think there are 18 fire alarms in that building, and Brian wants to add some more, and I said, but then you have to hardwire it to a service. He says, well, some of them are redundant, so you can disconnect those. I'm going, what are we talking about here? I just paid $600 a piece for this thing. Here's the letter he's talking about that he wants things done on. The only reason I haven't responded to this is the part that says, if you agree to abide by this decision alone, in other words, drop your claim that you've got a valid building permit and accept whatever happens on Thursday, this is a threat. This is a threat. I've been in the business that you're in for a long time, and when someone says, one of the conditions to talk about the CO, temporary CO, is you abide by the decision and drop the thing that we're talking about tonight.
Do we have a copy of that?
You may have this, absolutely. This is what set me off last week. This is a very thinly veiled threat.
Okay. Any further discussion on this?
No report?
No, I'd just like to see what the holdup is on the temporary cert. What is the requirement?
Is there a hold up?
I just need to be contacted that the other items were taken care of, and I need to read some.
But what about the part that it kind of like says,
The energy part is part of what I need.
no,
And,
about the person, about the accepting the final judgment?
That's where we're at.
I would agree.
It's in process.
Yeah, I would agree with the Aristotle that the request to abide by the decision of the appeals hearing takes away their legal right to move forward with superior judicial court. So I would suggest if we can amend that, if we can amend that and request it, I don't know how that kind of goes.
I think it's just a general letter of support. We don't need to be getting any legal advice out or getting involved in legal
But I would
advice.
agree that that's
Maybe that, hey, thinly veiled is thinly veiled. What does that mean?
Okay.
I'm not saying it's a threat.
Yeah.
I'm just saying it's a,
Okay, Chris, we'll get that letter out.
Do we vote?
Wish you the
We
best.
vote?
we had voted, yeah, we voted. Yeah.
So you don't send that, we don't pick it up or anything?
We can give it to you, however you want it, we'll have it for you by
You
tomorrow.
tell me, I'll do it any way you
Okay,
want.
I'll
I'll
give
glad
it
to
to you
take it
tomorrow.
tomorrow if you want.
We'll get it done.
All right, can I have that letter back? I think I put that in the back.
It's a matter of public record. We need it for a copy.
I just would need a copy back someday.
Okay?
Get the letter, I'll get you one.
Thank you very much, I'm sorry to take so much time.
If you wait a second, Kelly will make a copy.
Wait a minute.
Oh, okay.
Thank you, Kelly.
Again, I invite all of you to come down. I'd love to have you see it. It's a really special building.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're all set to move on. Item 8, a resolution authorizing and accepting of a gift for the highway department. Second.
Yeah. You want to read it or you want me to make it?
Yeah, you can make it. Let me just get this.
I think we already did this.
We got to sign it.
Okay, do you want another motion to redo that, or we're just gonna sign it?
Let's do another motion.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I move that we accept a very gracious gift from Lashway Lumber to the town of Dalton, earmarked for the highway department safety equipment.
I'll second that.
Second.
Motion was made and seconded for a gift from Lashaway Lumber for $3,290 they gave us for safety equipment. All right?
Yep.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you.
Oh.
Okay. Permission for the 13th annual Buddy Walk on September 28th.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we grant permission for the annual Buddies Walk on September 28th.
Okay, for a second.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded for the 13th annual Buddy Walk of the Berkshires on September 28th. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Next is the note issue. Ken, I'm going to have you.
We have the RBC delegate first.
Oh, geez, okay, come back to that 10 first. I skipped something. I'm not right on. Okay.
Oh,
Okay.
who is it, me?
Yeah, let's go back, I'm sorry. Let's go back to appointments for the PC alternate.
Joey, I make that motion for this myself.
Sure.
I move that we,
I move that we appoint John Wills as the DRPC alternate.
I'll second that.
Okay? And thank John for volunteering for that.
Thank you, John.
Yeah.
Motion's been made and seconded. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
hey,
Yes.
back when this was suggested, I emailed Dan Esco.
Yes, did you get that?
He never got back to me. I just said to him, I'm being appointed.
Okay.
If you can't make a meeting, let me know and I'll try to make it your place.
Okay. As far as I know, his Caleb has left.
Yes.
And I'll talk to Dan and tell him that he's the chair, he should really be the person, but if not, he needs to do it at the next meeting and appoint somebody on the board.
You need a new chair or?
No,
Another member.
A member of the planning board.
Okay, thanks.
I will do that.
Thank you, John, for doing
Mhm.
that. Okay, now Ken, we'll go to the note issue.
Notice I have documents for you to sign, but I'm pleased to report to you that we sell $1.232 million worth of bond anticipation notes on the demolition of the old high school for 1.9% for the next 9 months. So they'll come due in April. And Oppenheimer and Company was the low bidder. And if that is, there's a rate sheet in there, you can see who the bidders were and what the rates were. If that is acceptable to you, Mr. Chairman, I will give you the note issue to sign. There's a set of documents in here that you have to sign.
How long are we going to take that? That's fine.
Yeah, make sure you sign in each and every place that has a little red tag. So notes that we will schedule for rapid repayment on the demolition of the school after we come due in April. It's going to be about a 3 or 4 year schedule to get to that option.
Okay. Ken, I'll have you do the next one too, vacation payment and carryover requests.
There is a memorandum in your packet requesting your permission to pay or carry over vacation for 2 of our employees. As you know, under Article 7 of the First Town Personnel Policies, I can approve up to 1 week of either vacation carryover or payment for that vacation or a combination of both, but not more than a week altogether. We have a request here from one from our highway superintendent. As you know, the highway department's been short-handed, and he's asked for 2 weeks to be paid. I paid for 1 week. We need to approve payment for the second week. And our town treasurer, who was eligible for 5 weeks of vacation, with the schedule this year, only really took 1 week of vacation. I've authorized payment for 1 week, so that's payment for the second week, and carry over 2 weeks of vacation time.
Mr. Chairman, I vote that this request be granted.
Okay, so second?
I'll second it.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I don't have a paper to sign in here. Can we use the one I have?
Yes, that's fine. Yeah, we should.
Okay. Number 13, consideration of amending Article 7, Paragraph 4 of Salary and Fringe Benefits Policy. Can I have you address that?
Article 7 is a just account that allows payment for carryover vacation or combination to up to 1 week. After discussing with our chair, I'm suggesting that it be up to 2 weeks. This is a policy I was familiar with, considered a big deal, 2 weeks vacation pay.
Are you asking, what did you say?
Yeah, so my suggestion is that that we amend Article 7, Paragraph 4 to be 2 weeks instead of 1 week.
Okay. Do I have a motion?
What was that again?
We'll go to 2 weeks instead of 1 week, so authorize the town to grant carryover vacation.
Oh, I move that the town be authorized to carry over up to 2 weeks of vacation.
I'll second it.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. Is there any further discussion?
Yes, and that would include payment to or combination thereof, pay, or rollover, or a combination.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, I talked to John Bartel's emailing me today. There's really nothing new to report on the school committee. But he said he'll have something for us by the end of the month, so we'll just move past that. Okay, we go to town manager's updates.
Okay, the main update I have for you this evening is a proposal that we received from the Public Services for the transfer station contract. And although I've been asking for this for a while, I just received, as you can see, the email came in January 14th, and I just had a chance to focus on it last week with the town meeting that we just got through. I wasn't able to look carefully at it. And what we've asked for is quite a significant increase. They've asked for over 14% increase in stickers and bags for the next fiscal year. Now, with our health agent, we had a conversation on last Tuesday, and I said, based on, you can read the memorandum for yourself, there's not a lot of specifics here about what their income and expenses are. I asked for an income statement, telling me what the income and expenses are for the transfer station, so we can have a reasonable discussion about this, because I don't know at all whether this 14% increase is justified. Because their position is that they're losing money. And they want to have this done by the end of the month. This is not typical of how we've worked with the public in the past. You may remember the last time we did the contract, we went into the fall, and on a good faith basis, we renewed our stickers at the same price that we were going to moderately on the back. But in any event, it was all very amicable. I didn't sense that it was all that amicable, but it had nothing to do with the representative. It's been a very good conduit for discussion. But nonetheless, his firm has said, we want these increases, and we want it to happen within 30 days. And I said, we don't have much to go on this actual proposal. We've been asking for it for months now. It's not characteristic. So late today, I did get some summary income expense information, which indicates to me that they're breaking even, but in the expense side of it, I don't know how much it's profitability. I don't know what kind of profit we got for expense numbers, because it's just not detailed. So we don't have much leeway, unfortunately, by the tenor of the discussion I had with them. They said, we've analyzed it, we're losing money, these are the increases we want. And we're not really going to discuss it much. That was very disappointing, message I got. It's complicated by the fact that Casella from Vermont is going to buy out Republic. Republic has sold Western Massachusetts and the New York, the upstate New York business to Republic, and that's pending. I'm not sure what all the details are, but I think that's good for the SEC, Securities and Exchange Commission, this type of a deal. So I don't know where that all stands. So, I mean, it all indicates to me that maybe we should have a shorter term contract. We may not be able to negotiate anything better, and certainly going to try. But part of this is also complicated. If you read these bullet points with the fact that we want to improve recycling services for the haulers at our transfer station. Remember that the people who haul waste in town by our special town meeting action will have to improve their ability to pick up recyclables from town residents or other generators of waste. And we're trying to improve the transfer station so that one day a week, Thursdays, we can open and have the recyclables dropped off. Part of the increase they're looking for is embedded in this proposal, but we really need to separate it out because we want to recover the costs of improving recyclers for the haulers by the permit fee we charge the recyclers and a tipping fee for dumping. It's very similar to what residents do. Residents buy a sticker and then they pay for bags. So we're trying to incorporate that system for the haulers in town. And part of the increase they're looking for is buried in here. We have to separate it out so we know how much a permit fee should be for an individual hauler and know how much the tipping fee ought to be. So it's going to take a bit of analysis to come up with those numbers as well.
Ken, I spoke to you approximately 3 weeks ago. I was told unequivocally that Republic is going to sell it within 60 days. So why is Republic in a big rush to get this contract through if they're going to lose control over the company within 60 days? Doesn't really make sense.
Yeah, it's kind of surprising to me. Except maybe I don't know what kind of promises they made. Casella, one of the representative of the firm told me, well, maybe you can wait and take the chances with Casella. So, really, which way do we go? I mean, we can't afford to have Republic pull out of our transfer station.
But basically, no information we're being asked to sign is blind.
That's the problem.
I mean, certainly, the new company, Casella, has to honor the contract.
Right.
When they buy the assets of this company.
Yeah.
Maybe you're better off waiting.
But it puts into question just what Republic will do while we're waiting. Because they've indicated to us, to me, that they would like to have these rates increased by the end of the month. I mean, it's 30 days and then they're going to move on, increase the rates. But they can't really do that. Unilaterally without our permission.
Is there any-
30 days, it could be sold.
Yeah, is there any way, just have a little bridge contract?
Well, that's probably where we should be going.
And then I really don't want to sign a long-term deal and
Yeah, just for, it's attached to the information I give you, show you how the prices will go up. The 30-gallon bag, which a lot of people use, will go from $3.59 to $4.11. And then the sticker first vehicle sticker, most people only get one sticker, would go from 82 bucks to 90, almost $94.
And those people that have already bought their stickers, like myself, at $82 will then be expected to pay a surcharge or a difference in some states
That's
or
right.
game. And possibly even more than Casella takes on.
If we don't have something that Casella will honor, we don't know what Casella's going to do. I mean, maybe to our advantage to have something that Casella will honor. I'm going to try to get in touch with somebody that's up and talk to them.
Good idea.
Mr. Chairman, I'm the new guy on the block here, so just a question, curiosity. I've never been a big fan of non-compete contracts. And this seems like one of those contracts that's coming up to expiration. We should be getting the best price that we can. So if we get a short-term contract extension for 6 months, knowing that Casella's going to be the new owner, let them go ahead and bid for the business as long as a couple others and see what the prices can come down. Put some squeeze on them. But I would not support a long-term extension without competing bids.
Thank you.
One of the problems, Joe, is all that equipment over there belongs to Republic. They don't like the offer they gave me and the offer they made to us. It's possible they could take their equipment and go home.
I don't think they want to, I agree, and I don't think they'd want to lose businesses and try and go through a sell to a new company. I think they want to maintain a good relationship with the customer.
I gotta think.
Yeah. I agree.
Will we know by the 29th for our next meeting?
I'll try it. In your spare time.
We have a recommendation for a short-term contract, 6 months.
Yes.
Yeah. First year, December 31st. That's what we're suggesting.
Yeah, but for the first year. Do we need a formal vote?
Make a motion that we request a contract extension for 6 months. I'll second that. And include contract bid. I'll second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
They can have that. Get on. Okay, remarks of the select board.
I just have one, just because we're in this beautiful building in the senior center. And I also volunteer with Craneville, with Nessicus and also with Cone School. And the Nessicus principal, Debbie White, and a number of folks have gotten together to help improve the culture of the middle school and engagement. And they surveyed the students, asking about clubs. And a number of the clubs that came up include things that you would never think of middle schoolers nowadays asking for, including sewing and home ec and things of that nature. So I think it's a great opportunity to build some clubs with some support of the seniors in the community and also middle schoolers, and see if we can make a nice connection between the two. So that would begin in the new school year, and be working with Debbie White over the month of August to try and see how we can develop those further. But I think that's cool. So.
Anything else?
I'm just talking about this transfer station business. We could lose our most valuable asset over there. That's Scott. He attended, and
He's good.
I talk to him every time over, and he says, "Hey, I might not be here tomorrow." His new company takes over. So he's been outstanding benefit to the town of Dalton, and the customers and clients at the transfer station.
I think that's a great point, John. He's always there to lend a hand, smile, no matter if it's 10 below or 90 degrees out. But there's a way to, whatever happens with the transfer station contract, to retain him as the service person for Dalton. And that agreement would be fantastic. Make that happen.
Off the record, he said he's already looking, because I'm sure we all have.
Simple solution, make him a town employee. Make him a town employee and put him in the new contract.
That's a great idea.
Ken, wasn't there someone there that's suggesting that in their offer, again, we're getting back to it, that we extend the hours to Thursdays now?
Thursdays would be solely for the purpose of allowing the haulers to dump the recyclables. That's why it never worked under the old methodology.
Yeah.
Because it didn't work with our hours, because haulers, unless you used a very small truck, wouldn't get in there. So we had a special day set aside.
So Thursday would just be for haulers?
Yeah.
Yet, the place would have to be manned,
And it would be manned by the
so there's an additional expense.
That's right.
items for future agenda. Anything new?
Just a question, Mr. Chairman, just on the streets to be proposed for repaving, it's on the agenda for E12. But I'd like to see if you can get personally get an overview of what that looks like. So I'm not really involved with it. It's over driving around, I guess, something like that. Where is there something?
I was gonna say, you know, they're all in one little, that's one of the reasons they're doing those streets, because they're all contiguous, they're all up off of North Street.
Okay.
Yeah, Miriam, Henson, and Franklin, and all that.
And that's,
Good. There's been this pattern about where you all the last year, all over the road. Spent the whole day. Came up with.
Okay.
Good question. All the teams, East End.
Any others? Announcements? State Representative Paul Hart holds office hours at Dalton Town Hall in the Callahan Room on Tuesdays from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. The third Tuesday of each month. On the third Tuesday, office hours are 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. at Town Hall, and from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. at the Dalton Senior Center. You can reach his office at his district number, which is 413-464-5635. I hold office hours weekly on Thursdays at the Town Hall from 2:30 to 4 p.m. with the exceptions of the first Thursday of the month, which I hold here at the same time. For further information or to schedule an appointment, please call 684-6111, extension 11. And if you want to do something at the Senior Center during my office hours here, it's 413-684-2000. The Dalton Green Committee and Conservation Commissions are looking for new members. If interested, contact the Town Manager's Office, 684-6111, extension 11. I declare an open meeting may have detrimental effects on the negotiation position of the public body.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we adjourn to the executive session in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel and now return to open session.
Okay, roll call vote. Edward?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Joe?
yes.
Yes. We'll go into recess in 5 minutes, and thank you everyone for showing up tonight. I appreciate it. And thank you, Kelly, for your wonderful hospitality.